Okay, there's plenty of reasons to deconstruct the facade. Your health will improve. We've only listed a few, right? But to me, these are the most important, the bottom two. You can't have a relationship with God with a facade, and God does not want a relationship with you in your facade. God doesn't even want it. Yep. Thanks, Rob.
AJ, say I've deconstructed part of my facade and then truth and love can enter. Mm-hmm. Can that hurt self have a relationship with God?
No.
It has to go, the hurt has to be exposed and felt, released, and then, okay, thanks.
God, the hurt self, remember, is a creation. It's not the reality of your soul. The hurt self can't have a relationship with God either. Many of you are trying to have a relationship with God through your hurt self. That's why it's not working. You know, you're in your hurt, having a cry and say, please help me with this, please. But it's all, you're engaged in a lot of addictive behaviour with God as a result of avoiding the feelings of hurt. When you truly connect to your feelings of hurt, the real self will kick in, and that's where you have a relationship with God.
Thanks.
Yep. Remember, your real self is your soul. This facade self and the hurt selves are creations of your own or others. Since they are creations of your own or others, God did not create them, and God doesn't have a relationship with them. God only has a relationship with your real self. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? But let's go to Ange, and then we'll come down to Rita.
So in that situation, you're crying, you're in your damaged self.
Yep.
You just said that God can only have a relationship with our real self.
Yep.
So is it possible that we can have, an opening to that real self just in that area at that particular time?
Of course.
And that would be a causal emotion?
The feeling of a real emotion of the hurt self is going to release the emotion.
Yes.
And during that moment of release, and usually it's instant, the moment of release, you will have a connection to your real self. And if your real self at that point in time is longing for God and longing for God's love, you will feel it. You're guaranteed. Yeah. Every single time you will feel it. Yeah. And if you think about it, for most of us, we don't feel it every single time, and that's because we're not doing a lot of these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Guaranteed. When I say guaranteed, God is the most consistent thing in the universe being in the universe. God doesn't go arbitrary, I think this time, even though Angie's having a real feeling, I think this time I'll just not give her love just so that I can punish her or something. Who does that sound like? It's certainly not God. It sounds more like maybe mum and dad, right? Yeah, God's consistent. With every single one of God's children, God is consistent. If you have a sincere desire and you allow the feeling of hurt to flow through you, even as it's flowing, you will receive some of God's love, because now you've got some connection to your real self. And if your real self does have a pure desire for God's love, you will feel it in that moment. You will. It's guaranteed. Yeah. Okay, now we were down to Rita, I think.
You said God sees warts and all, and we should see ourselves as God sees us.
Yes.
Does that mean that God sees all our three selves, and we should learn to see that too?
Yes, God sees
and particularly the facade.
God sees all of your hurt. God sees all of your facade. All of it. God sees all of it. God does not have...
He sees our facade, but he doesn't want a relationship with us as long as we have just the facade.
Correct. He doesn't want a relationship with the facade.
Because it's actually not real.
Because it's not real.
Not
he doesn't want a relationship with the hurt because someone else created it. He wants a relationship with your real self. Your real self is what he created. That's the soul that is you. That is the only part of these three cells, if you like, that is real. That is long-term, will remain forever. That's the thing God wants a relationship. Isn't that great? That means that you deal with the facade and you deal with your hurt, your relationship with God's not going to disappear. It's going to get better. If God had a relationship with your facade, then what would happen? You get rid of your facade and now you'd have no relationship. That's not much good. Your facade's temporary, you get rid of the facade and all of a sudden your relationship dies. That would have none of us wanting to get rid of our facade, wouldn't it? If you could maintain a relationship with God through a facade, most of you would prefer to do that, right? Right now? Most of you would prefer to do that. So why would there be any reason for giving it up? But to me, this is very important. God doesn't want a relationship with that part of you at all. Isn't that a good reason to give it up? To me, that's the best reason for giving it up. Right. They're pretty loud, aren't they? Should we say that was God's approval? No. Gary, thanks.
I just need some clarification on the God's love.
Yep.
So we're hurt and we're damaged, and can we just pray for God's love in isolation? Can we just say it I can just long for God's love?
Yeah, have you done that?
Yep.
Did it work?
No.
Okay.
So you have to actually be in the process of releasing the pain.
You have to have some connection to your real self. And when you're in the facade or in your hurt, you've not got any real connection to yourself. And you've got to feel your way through the facade, feel the way through the hurt.
Yeah.
Then you'll get some connection. Remember yesterday I drew the circle and I said, here's your real self, here's your three cells, if you like, your real self at the centre. All you need is a fissure, a crack in the facade that allows you to have a crack in the hurt, and then you got some real self poking through, and then you can start your relationship. You don't have to have it all done, but you're going to have to at least do that with one thing, because if you don't do it with anything, you're going to get no results, which is what most people have when they hear divine truth. They try, no results for years, and the reason why they have no results for years is because they are not allowing the connection with the real self, because they are so much in their facade and so much in their hurt, there's no way that anything can get through to their real self. So we've got to allow that to occur. Yeah. Most of us don't want to. So that means that we can't have a relationship with God because we don't want to. And God's not going to barrage his way into your real self. To do that, he'd have to break his own laws. He'd be sinning against his own laws. That's not going to be possible, is it? He wouldn't make a law and then choose to sin against it. All right? Remember I said every time you impact upon another person's will, you're sinning against God and them. You're breaking one of God's laws. God wouldn't do that with one of God's own laws. So God's not going to force God upon you. You're going to have to do some work to get rid of the things that you and others created. The bit that God created is that part, the centre part, the real self. That's the bit God created. That's the bit that God wants a relationship with. And by the way, that bit is the only bit that's real, so therefore it's not a bit, it's the whole thing. All of these other things, even though I've drawn them as larger, like onion rings, they are nothing. They're all figments, creations of yours or other people's imagination. They are not your real self. So God can't have a relationship with them.